Hello writers, come write with me. My name is Mykela Greenwood. I create worlds for mind adventures. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Write with Mykela. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can go on this journey with me. Today I'm reading my chapter 9 for our chapter exchange. If you are writing with me and wish to exchange chapters, then I need written permission to read your chapter on the channel, along with your name and pen name and age. I also need permission from your parent or legal guardian if you are under 18 years of age. If you're under 18 years old then and have guardian permission, then I will need a pen name to read your material. Writers may send their chapters in PDF or Word document format to WritewithMykela@gmail.com. I'm not making promises to read every chapter sent to me on the channel, but I intend to read all the chapters sent. The chapter exchange makes this fun. All chapters read on Fridays, whether they are mine or another writer's work, are copyright protected material, and no one may use any part in writing their own stories. I want to remind you that this story is at least PG-13, meaning if you're under 13 years of age, you need parental guidance. I also want to remind everyone that this story is in its rough draft stage. As I've been reading it on the channel, I've been coming up with ideas and things that I would like to do to edit it. And I know at this point the story needs many more passes of edits. Some of the edits you may think of on your own if you joined me on Tuesdays. If I read something with passive voice, or I do read something with passive voice, you could leave that in the comments. And there were places where I haven't yet or may not ever edit passive voice out. Last Friday we read, Kilty was engrossed in her painting. And that may seem like passive voice, but I'm calling that one state of being. I read that in chapter 8 last Friday. For those of you just joining me, I call this story City of the Ancients, and today we are reading chapter 9, Marriage. If you have been with me for Storytime on Fridays, then you know the story started with an unfortunate picnic where Kilty received a snake bite from a ravenous vaporous. After that, Kirsha read part of the book City of the Ancients, and then the three friends started out to find information on how to find the city. They headed to the port, and they successfully found a cave. In the cave was a map room. Then Kirsha and Kirian argued, and Kirian headed home without Kirsha and Kilty. Kirsha took the opportunity to detour to the castle where she found her orb key. That's a brief summary of what has transpired so far. Now let's continue the story. Chapter 9, Marriage. In the morning, many villagers came by to see Kirian. Each person had his own advice to give. Kirian thought, before the females thought I was bad. Now they think I'm some kind of hero. The males used to think I was doing my best to work with a difficult situation. Now they think I've lost my mind entirely. Oh, Kirsha, I hope you come straight home. I need to inform you of this before the village bombards you with questions. Kirian found it difficult to work with so many interruptions. Twice he started the wooden vials for Kirsha, but he couldn't even concentrate on that. A little before mid-morning, Kirsha got up, packed the bag to leave. Kirsha and Kilty found their boat right where they left it. The lesser vein of the river joined back up with the main vein before the river flowed under the iron gate to leave. Kirsha and Kilty found the gate open, but it fell shut just after they passed beneath it. Kilty didn't bother trying to ask Kirsha how she had done it, since Kirsha was refusing to admit to her magic. But Kirsha stared at the gate a long time. Tears trickled down her hot, rosy cheeks as she remembered the voice in the orb. Part of her felt that she had finally found home, but she was drifting away from that sanctuary of peace and family that was here and so far unknown to her. A little after mid-afternoon, people stopped coming by. Kirian busied himself with his work. When night fell, Kirian put away his tools and tidied up the house before going to bed. Kirsha didn't pull the boat ashore. She just let the boat float down the river all night. In the morning, Kirian left the house to get eggs and milk, fruit and bread. Kirsha and Kilty floated south on the east side of North Point Villa. Kirsha opened her eyes as they floated past the last barn. She quickly jumped out of the boat and pulled it ashore. She lifted Kilty out and then their things. Kirsha pushed the boat into the bushes, and then she and Kilty hurried home. When Kirsha got to the front door of their home, she stopped short. She saw the steps swept clean, the straw mat straight, and the signs hung. Kirsha went in with Kilty and the little cart. She noticed Kirian had set up shop. Then she remembered their last conversation, or more precisely, their last argument. She dropped her head down. She felt shame for treating Kirian so poorly. He was right. He had done nothing to receive her scorn. Kirsha put away the cart and hurried up the stairs. Kirian was not there. Kirsha quickly put water to boil. She took a bath and put on a clean dress. She washed their clothes that they had traveled in and hung them to dry. Kirsha was about to prepare lunch when she heard Kirian come in the front door. Kirsha rushed down the stairs and stopped at the bottom. Kirsha and Kirian stared at each other for a few moments. Kirsha motioned to the shop. "You did all of this for me?" Kirian looked around. "Yes. If I had known it was so important to you, I would have done it sooner. I thought you wouldn't like people just coming into our house, so I always did my work away from our home. But it is much easier for me to work here." "So you didn't do it for me, and then you did do it for me," she confirmed. "Yes," answered Kirian. "I love you. I have loved you for a long time. I fell in love with you on the ship." Kirsha looked down. "I'm sorry for what I said. I should have thought that you never asked for money when you bought the things I asked you to buy. But, well, I'm sorry." "Kirsha, don't worry about it. I should have told you when I was working, but I never told you where I went or what I did. I thought you didn't care. Now I know I was wrong. You do care, and I want to be with you. I want you to marry me." The voice from the orb ran through her mind, but she didn't believe that Kirian wouldn't torture her once she let her guard down. Yet she knew that eventually all females married, especially in the villages. Women were not simply single, and Kirian seemed a better choice than any other male. She said quietly, "I will marry you." Then she looked up and added, "And we will tell the village that Kilty isn't your daughter. We can say that she is my sister or something." "I already told the village that," stated Kirian. "Oh," replied Kirsha. "It's a long story," replied Kirian. "When do you want to get married?" "I don't know," replied Kirsha. "I guess we could talk to Mr. Parsons today. He could tell us what we needed to do." "Okay. Well, let me put away these things, and then we'll go over to the church," stated Kirian. He started towards Kirsha and the stairs. "I can put them away," Kirsha stated. Kirian handed her the basket of eggs. "Come, we'll do this together." They went upstairs. Kilty went with them to the church. "Kirian, Kirsha, what brings you here?" asked Mr. Parsons. "We have come to talk to you about marriage," stated Kirian. "Ah," replied Mr. Parsons. He looked at Kirsha. She didn't stand tall or straight. Her countenance was very sullen. Kirsha didn't even look up. He had never seen Kirsha like this. This obviously wasn't one of her happier moments. "Kirsha," started Mr. Parsons, "Kirian tells me that Kilty is your sister." Kirsha looked up. "I asked him to lie," stated Kirsha vehemently. "I didn't want the village to take her from me. Is that the village's intention now? Are they going to take her, now that they know that Kilty has no living parents?" Kirian thought, "Her lies are so believable. She is much better at this than I am." "No," replied Mr. Parsons. "No, Kirsha, no one will take her. But 2.5 years ago we may have done so. I understand now why you lied." Mr. Parsons paused. "Kirian, you asked about marriage?" "Yes," replied Kirian. "Kirsha, is this what you want? Are you doing this for Kilty?" pressed Mr. Parsons. I'm not doing this for Kilty," she replied, as she slightly shook her head no. She was again looking down. "Is this what you want?" Mr. Parsons asked again. Kirsha nodded her head slightly. She didn't look up. She didn't want Mr. Parsons or Kirian to see her tears. "Well, then we can do the ceremony right now, if you like," stated Mr. Parsons. "I will tell the village the news," stated Mrs. Brocklin. Kirian and Kirsha jumped and turned around. Miss Brocklin was coming towards them. She grabbed Kirsha's hand and pulled her. "Come on, dearie. I have a dress that you can wear." Kirsha's eyes were wide. She looked back at Kirian, and he shrugged. On the way to Mrs. Brocklin's house, Miss Brocklin stopped every person in the dusty street and told them the news. Soon the wedding ceremony was ready to begin. Everyone in the village crowded into the small church. King Arik and Queen Arisha stood in the center of the altararium. They held up their orbs. Many people gathered around them and gazed in the orbs. They watched the wedding ceremony. Tears of joy ran down the king's and queen's face as they watched. Mr. Parsons flipped open his book. "Kirsha, do you take this man to be your lawful wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part?" Kirsha repeated the list to herself. "Well, can't I still make money? If he is poor, I can get money by selling my lace." Kirian dropped his head down. It was all he could do not to laugh. Kirsha was so serious. Mr. Parsons stopped and looked at Kirsha. Dear." Everyone in the circle chuckled. King Arik and Queen Arisha smiled. "Kirsha, listen to me," stated Kirian. "He's not talking about me being poor. He's talking about us being poor. It doesn't matter if you think that we will never be poor. The question asks if you take me as husband in every condition of life." "Oh, well, why didn't he ask the question like that?" asked Kirsha. "Because it's not as poetic, dear," replied Mr. Parsons. He read the question again. Kirsha thought about it several minutes before she answered, "I do." Then Mr. Parsons asked Kirian. Kirian answered right away, "I do." "Kirian," stated Kirsha, "you didn't even think about the question. You could at least think about it." "Kirsha," said Kirian calmly, "I knew that he would ask me that before I asked you to marry me. I already knew my response." "Oh," replied Kirsha. "You have never been to a wedding, have you?" Kirian asked. Kirsha shook her head no. Kirian chuckled. Mr. Parsons looked between them. He took in a deep breath. "Okay, do you have rings for each other?" "No," replied Kirian. "Then I now pronounce you man and wife," stated Mr. Parsons. "You may kiss the bride." Kirsche pushed her eyebrows together. Hey, before you say anything, stated Kirian, I will explain. A man always needs permission to kiss his wife or have sex with her. This is a reminder of that. Kirian took Kirsche's hands in his, and I promise to you that I will never hurt you like you were hurt before. Kirsche stared into Kirian's eyes. Tears trickled down her cheeks. Kirian gently cupped his hands on the side of Kirsche's face. He lifted her chin, and he leaned down to kiss her. He felt her shake. He didn't want the village to see her shaking. He gently brushed his lips against hers, and he wrapped his arms around her protectively. He whispered, Don't let the village see you shake. A man announced the evening festivities which the village had arranged. There was to be a dance and a dinner. Kirsche whispered to Kirian, I don't know how to dance. He whispered back, Then it's time for you to learn. There was every type of food imaginable. Everyone had brought something to contribute. The first few dances were for couples. Then they had a dance for the women. The men stood in a circle around the women, watching and clapping in time. Mr. Dontower leaned close to Kirian. He said, Since you are new at this, I will give you some advice. Never bring your wife to the bedroom for a little fun before inquiring about her well-being. Or if her work is finished, added Mr. Brocklin. That way you take away all her excuses not to have fun beforehand, finished Mr. Leister. The men laughed. Kirian sighed. He knew such excuses were the least of his worries. Her fear would keep them apart much more than anything else. They continued watching the women until it was time to join them in the dancing again. Little by little, the crowd drifted apart and the people went home. Arik and Arisha were the last to leave. They walked home hand in hand. They were indeed happy, though they were not yet sure if Kirsche had taken her orb or not. A few hours after dark, the festivities broke up, and Kirian and Kirsche walked home with Kilty. Once inside, Kirsche asked Kirian, Kirian, I am confused. I just gave up everything. My freedom, my independence, my self-identity, everything. But everyone kept telling me congratulations. Why? Kirian sighed. Kirsche, they don't consider it giving up anything. They consider it gaining. I just gained someone to share my life with, someone to share my sorrows and my joys. I have not lost anything. You have not lost anything. Torture still didn't register well with him, but he thought slavery from long ago was torturous. So he added, I did not buy you at an auction. You are not a slave. You are my wife. Kirian was frustrated. Did your dad beat your mom or something? Kirsche slightly shook her head. No, because she didn't want to discuss her family any more than she already had. They went upstairs. They both took care of Kilty. After Kirian and Kirsche took care of Kilty, they walked into the kitchen. Kirsche had pulled everything out before lunch, before they had decided on getting married. Are you going to put all this away tonight? Asked Kirian. I can help you. No, replied Kirsche. I'm really tired. I'll do it tomorrow. Kirian's shoulders slumped. He headed to the bedroom. Oh, he said glumly. What? Called Kirsche. Kirian, what's wrong? It's not that I don't appreciate your offer of help. Kirian walked back to her. Kirsche, tonight is supposed to be a special night for us, but you were tired. Come, let's go to bed. He took her hand and led the way. Are you not tired? After all that dancing and with all those people? Asked Kirsche. Kirian pulled her close. I am tired, but not too tired to enjoy our first night together as husband and wife. Oh, replied Kirsha, understanding his meaning. She looked down. Then do to me what you must do. Kirian let out a heavy sigh. Kirsha, I don't want things that way. I want us to do this together. He looked at her. He knew she was trying her best. She thought that she gave up everything, but she freely gave it up for him. And here she stood, fighting her fear, so he could have pleasure. He smiled at her. Hey, he said, lifting her chin. You really care a lot for me, don't you? Well, Kirian, no one has ever done something for me just because I asked. You did. You do. Kirian, I appreciate everything you've done for me. That's not what I asked, stated Kirian. You love me, don't you? Kirsha looked down. She whispered, Yes, I do. I'm so weak. But yes, my heart has overpowered my mind. How about tonight you at least wear a nightdress and we can hold hands in bed, suggested Kirian. Kirsha agreed. After they climbed in bed, Kirsha leaned up. Kirian, I really, really appreciate you setting up shop. Lay your head on my chest, Kirian instructed. He pulled her close. She complied. She slept curled up beside him. Kirian knew that was a big step for her. He felt confident that he could teach her to trust him. He didn't know about her orb or the voices she had heard, and he didn't know that part of her compliance was to learn if the voices spoke the truth. If Kirian truly was not trying to get her to drop her guard so he could torture her, then perhaps her parents still lived and had trapped themselves in the Ultrarium. Well, writers, that was a much shorter chapter than the last couple of chapters, or the last 3 chapters. I guess I should speak a little about chapters. When I first write a story, I don't worry about chapters. I just write. Then I break my story in chapters during editing. On Tuesdays, we haven't spoken about climax yet. But basically, the highest point of tension or action in a story is the climax. It's where the story resolves itself because your protagonist succeeds or ultimately fails. Which doesn't mean your character has a setback. Your character fails or the antagonist defeats your protagonist. And that could be a climax as well. Now, in most cases, each chapter should have a smaller climax. You break down the culmination of events in the story into chapters or steps to reach that peak of the story. So you kind of have a little bit and a little bit till you reach the peak. Today is not a jargon day, but I'm mentioning it here because the smaller climax of marriage in this story is part of the characters coming together. The story needs this event for the story to move forward. Chapter 1 was also wasn't long. Wasn't very long. But the story needed the snake bite for the story to start. There are no hard or fast rules about the length of chapters. Well, I'm sure your editor may have some words to say about this as well. But Chapter 1, in my opinion, Chapter 1 or your prologue of the story should be a short hook or something to quickly engage your readers. You want to start building your story quickly. Now, you can start too quickly. And usually I do. But your first draft is a rough draft. You never write a complete story in the first go. Now, nothing says that you don't push Chapter 1 back to Chapter 2 so you start your story a little slower. And I've done that several times. Even in my Mykela series, I actually have added, I think, 2 chapters in front of my original prologue. So I started it a little slower. But you still need something to hook your readers. So when I was doing the Mykela series, I had talked about a fire hitting Mykela's farm later in the story, like as a backflash. But when I went back, I actually put that scene in as the first scene. So it had some action to hook the readers. I know, jargon. But I most likely will not cover climax on Tuesday, or at least not this coming Tuesday. So we got a little bit of what the climax is. Now, back to the story. I hope you're enjoying the story, and I hope you're joining me in our chapter exchange. I'm looking forward to your chapters. Remember to reread the plot 1 so you can align your story to the plot. I mean, you don't have to. I read the plot several times to keep my alignment. If you decide that you want to develop your plot a different way, then that's your choice, because you're the writer, you're the creator, so you certainly can have that fun. But if you want to stay in line with this plot that I've developed for us, then reread it every once in a while. So far in the City of the Ancients, I have covered points 1 and 2. You have 3 friends. 1 friend got hurt. We still don't know exactly what we need to cure Kilty, but we know where it is. The cure is in the City of the Ancients. Next, how do the 3 friends get to the special area where the cure is? We have learned that the 3 friends need the orb keys, and they have 1 so far. In the story, it stated that the forest in the inner ring of mountains is very dangerous. But where is the city? When the 3 friends found the map room, the map showed a specific place inside the ring. We don't know what the 4 holes represent precisely, but those are our clues so far as readers. It wasn't easy to get to the map room, and it won't be easy traversing through the forest. Still, the 3 friends have to learn some things and come together even more before they can find even some of the orb keys. It was stated that the Kyrian and Kilty didn't have the magic yet to get their keys, so they have to learn a little bit of the magic first. If you've enjoyed the story so far, let me know in the comments. If you haven't, then fantasy might not be your genre. It might not be a genre you like. You might like more action or more romance, and that's fine. Join me Tuesday for writing prompt, and join me Friday for story time and chapter 10. The truth starts to show. I hope to see you both days. Don't forget, if you need a little more fun between now and then, you can check out my website, www.bymykela.com. You might want to start with Miaja's bio, since she is the main character of that story. If you read a bio or 2, then let me know in the comments which ones you've read. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your participation. If you know someone who would like this video, then please share it with them. This is Mykela with Write with Mykela. Bye for now.